So I'm Larry Diamond. I'm a senior fellow here at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies in the Center on Democracy Development and the Rule of Law, but longtime dear friend of the Shorenstein APARC Center, and also at the Hoover Institution. And it's really been my honor, pleasure, and joy to work with Gi-wook Shin and others at Stanford and in Taiwan to help get this off the ground. I'm going to introduce our four panelists. It's going to be a little bit different in format. It'll be conversational. We have a lot of things to discuss, to share, to reflect on. We'll see how much we will debate. Let me tell you who they are. Sitting next to me is C.Y. Huang, who is one of the most experienced investment bankers in Asia and an influential opinion leader. He's interviewed widely by the international media. He is president of FCC Partners, a leading investment bank in Asia with offices in Taipei, Shanghai, Singapore, and Ho Chi Minh City. He's also the vice chairman of the KT Lee Foundation, which has not only strong connections with the semiconductor industry, but with Stanford University. And in addition, he's founding chairman of Taiwan Mergers and Acquisitions and Private Equity Council, and founder of the Southeast Asia Impact Alliance. And he's an alumnus of Stanford MBA. Jason Su, over there, is an Edward Mason Fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School, where we're about to lose one of our faculty members to become your new dean. But anyway, that's one of our contributions to Harvard University. And Jason is an expert at the intersection of technology, geopolitics, and international politics. At Harvard this year, he's been giving lectures and leading seminars on Taiwan and the semiconductor industry. He helped us a lot for our Hoover Institution working group on that subject. He served as a legislator at large for a term of the Li Fa Yuan in Taiwan's parliament, where he worked on policy and legislation on AI, cybersecurity, semiconductors, and all kinds of issues of technology and security. He also is, in a way, an alumnus of Stanford in that he is a fellow of our Draper Hills Summer Fellows Program, now the Fisher Family Summer Fellows Program at CDDRL, which met in this room not too long ago. Rose Zhou has more than 20 years, I almost said 70 years. That obviously would have been impossible, of international leadership experience in digital media, advertising, and e-commerce. She was head of Verizon Media International and e-commerce after Verizon acquired Yahoo in 2017. Prior to that, she ran Yahoo APAC as the regional head for 10 years, expanding Yahoo's operations and revenue. She grew the revenue of Yahoo Taiwan by 40-fold in 10 years, so maybe you'd like to come work for us. Previously, she was general manager of MTV Taiwan, and she's an independent director of several corporations. And her MBA is from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. But now that you've been in our conference, you're kind of an alumna of Stanford.
Oh, great, great. I love the association.
Steve Chen is an internet entrepreneur who I think you all know is the co-founder of YouTube. He was born in Taiwan, but then moved to the US when he was 8 years old. He grew up in Chicago and moved here to the Silicon Valley to join PayPal in 1999. There, which is here, he met Chad Hurley. The rest is history. They co-founded YouTube, and it quickly became the web's fastest growing site, or one of them, and was sold to Google for a sum I won't disclose, but it's quite a large number.
We talked to Yahoo.
And
Please refresh. Google.
Steve was the first recipient of the Gold Card, that famous program that we'll be talking about, which was launched in 2018 by Taiwan to attract foreign talent to move to the country. And in 2019, after 20 years here in the Silicon Valley, he moved his family to Taiwan, and you'll hear more about his story as we talk. So let me begin kind of moving down the line here by asking each of you, well, at least each of the first three of you, the question that lurked in a couple of the previous sessions, particularly the one on healthcare and innovation, where I'd say we got a little bit of a preview of one angle of this. You know, where does Taiwan go next in terms of global technological and business leadership in the world? What are the new frontiers and the new opportunities? So if you could each kind of take a few minutes and articulate where you see some of the opportunities in a sectoral nature. And let's focus on the opportunities, and then we'll focus on the hurdles that need to be overcome. Go ahead, CY.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Huang. I graduated from GSB '87, so way back. Just this morning when I talked with John Levine, I understand how old I am. And he's so fresh and so young. And plus, most of the speaker, I'm probably older than most of the speaker today. But I did have 37 years of experience in dealing with a Taiwanese company, and also 6 years dealing with a Chinese PRC company. So I can share with you the issue about what's next for Taiwan. There's a question being debated a lot. In Taiwan, we call 护国神山, meaning the magic mountain protecting Taiwan. And our people say, oh, what is the next magic mountain protecting Taiwan? And the good thing about Taiwan is that Taiwan is strong in semiconductor, but that unfortunately get Taiwan in the geopolitical, all the problems that arise lately. And Taiwan's semiconductor industry and the global reliance on Taiwan semiconductor will become even stronger in the future, because many more companies will produce their own chips, like Amazon, Google, Microsoft. Those are not semiconductor companies, but now they are also getting semiconductor. They design chips manufactured by TSMC. TSMC, to give you an idea, its market cap is now over 30%, around 30 to 33%. I saw my old friend, used to be the head of a securities company in Taiwan. And that, back in your days, it's not that big. But now it's so big, it becomes problematic. So Taiwan is good because of TSMC, but Taiwan is problematic also because of TSMC. Why? First is because of the geopolitical tension. Every country in the world wants Taiwan to move the semiconductor there. U.S., ask TSMC, Arizona there, and then also Japan, Kumamoto plant. Japan is doing much, much smoother. The first plant, 14 months already start up and running. The U.S. plant, 2 years is still going nowhere. And then also has a plant in Germany, and plus many other countries. But it is not good if all Taiwan's resources are being sucked into semiconductor and or by TSMC. And not only the geopolitical tension, but they are also, in Taiwan, we call 五缺, 5 shortages. Shortages of electricity, shortage of water, shortage of land, shortage of labor, and shortage of talent. So there are a lot of shortages. And recently, power is a great the issue to be discussed. The renewable energy is what Taiwan is seeking for next. But the renewable energy, Taiwan, so far, because of the policy of discontinue nuclear power by 2025, so it is a failure. The government trying to promote renewable energy. The original goal is by 2025, the renewable energy will account for 20%. But so far, it's only 6%. And the solar, no future, because the land is already covered with solar rooftops. And then the renewable energy, most of the foreign renewable energy players are gradually moving away from Taiwan, because other places might present even better opportunities. So that is a daunting challenge. And then now we have AI. AI demands more semiconductor and demands more power, more electricity. So a lot of data center need to be built, and the data center needs power, needs electricity. And so there's a very much an issue behind the success of Taiwan. What about the other industry? That's what the government don't want to talk about. So the other, it's a very the imbalance of the resources allocation, so you talk about the traditional manufacturing, very bad. If you talk about the service industry, 60% of the population is in service industry. Their average the wages are relatively low. And then even in the high-tech, or we say electronic manufacturing industries, if you're not TSMC, you are also under a lot of problem. And lastly, we are now talking about the geopolitics decoupling. The September 9/11 last year, I organized, a forum. Larry knows a geopolitical forum. I, as a banker, I invited 4 chair professors from Harvard, Joseph Nye, Graham Allison, 2 from University of Chicago, John Mearsheimer. I think if you study international relations, you know who they are. Yes, I invited them. I'm a banker. Why do I do that? Because companies are really concerned about the future, concerned about, and now the government is pushing toward a new southbound policy. So I think it is good that the companies are moving away from China, but now they are going to the Southeast Asia. That's a tremendous challenge. They're very different from China. China speaks the same language. China government in the past treat Taiwanese company very well in the mid-90s. But now moving to all the other countries in the 3 in specific, India, Southeast Asia, in particular Vietnam and Mexico, due to the friendship program. All of these are different region, different culture, and sometimes totally different languages. So Taiwanese companies, even tech companies, have a lot of the challenges. So to answer your question, yeah, there are some new industry trying to emerge, the next magic mountain, but so far not a clear one. 2 years ago, people talk about the next magic mountain. The next industry will be EV, electric vehicle, and that has proved a failure. It's impossible because now even BYD has dominated. You have beaten Tesla. So Tesla, Elon Musk had to go to China to talk with them to get some favorable policy. So companies, I think that Tesla doesn't need Taiwan to do manufacturing for them, unlike Apple needs Foxconn to do that. So that is very worrisome. But I will share later. I will stop here first. Thank you.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Rose, what do you see on the horizon as possible new opportunities for Taiwan to innovate and
After hearing
grow?
CY, that I got pretty nervous already. Well, it is true that Taiwan is known for semiconductor and is indispensable in Taiwan. Generally, overall, we play a crucial role in the global supply chain. To honestly, from my background in the internet, in the past, I never knew much about really is going on the kind of physical layer of the world, right? We just do things as on the digital layer, on the virtual side. But what really is the Taiwan strength is Taiwan is so good at making the innovative ideas and technologies and take it into real products and take it into real production. And that strength, I would say, as the world continues to explore all kinds of technological innovation, this ability is crucial. And this will continue to well position Taiwan, not only in semiconductor, but also in all things that surrounding the generative AI, the LLM models. As we talked about, AI absolutely is going to be at the forefront of a technological revolution. And Taiwan will play a very important role. And I think this is the best timing, in addition to semiconductor, just thinking about, the GPU has so much power consumption, as CY just mentioned. At the same time, you have to have that server to be able to hold that mega machine, to be able to deal with the thermal issues. At the same time, to be hosted in a data center where there's so much power is needed, where the whole world is fighting to get carbon emission reduction. And we're all tasked with the same goal. We have to control the temperature rise under 1.5 degrees, in the next couple of years. These are dilemma, but this needs advanced technology to address this so that we can have the technological advancement while at the same time to be able to reducing carbon emission. I think Taiwan is very well placed in solving some of the hard problems. And one of the companies probably are not often heard about, but John knows, and some of the bankers say, don't tell everyone else, because these companies are great, but not everyone knows, so we can make a lot of money out of these. But, so one of the companies who is a global thermal and power management and solution company like Delta Electronics deals with these hardcore issues, right? So from the power grid, so to be able to get the solar power into the grid, to the microgrid, to power the EV, no matter how bad now EV outlook is, but even plug-in hybrid EV is going to take electricity, right? They're down to, all the AI innovation, the server. It's one of the largest, well, probably the leading. It is the leading AI server power management. It's also, one of the major players in the kind of tier one management and power solution for all the major EV companies in the world. So company as such, which is R&D based, which has great manufacturing capabilities and continue to solve difficult problems, are going to continue to be the driving force for Taiwan's future going forward. In addition, I would say another important growth area is for Taiwan to take their expertise and really go global. Go global in addition to manufacturing globally. So with the geopolitical new dynamic, every country expects things have to be made in their backyard. Okay, so the centralized manufacturing model is totally disrupted. So Taiwan is picking up this whole global distributed manufacturing capability. So that is one. The other is really accessing to markets. So we're going up in the value chain, which is important for Taiwan, going up the value chain so that we're no longer being seen only a manufacturer. Not only that we're good at hardware design, we can actually go understanding the source of the end customer's need and then start, solving those problems and therefore earning good margin and earning the premium that way. Furthermore, to even provide solutions to those problems such as smart manufacturing, taking Taiwan is what we're already very good at and take it into a solution to sell to other countries. So there are enough of the reason for us to be optimistic and pessimistic at the same time, but what makes Taiwanese so unique? We are survivors. Maybe people don't talk much about Taiwanese, but a lot of quiet, silent, kind of unsung heroes in all the devices that you use every day are made by Taiwan, or parts of it is made by Taiwan. And those companies are incredibly successful with great patent, IP, and we don't hear about it. But conferences as such is a great opportunity to really showcase Taiwan's capabilities and to have the belief that investing in Taiwan is the right thing to do.
Great, thank you for those observations, Rose. Now we go to Jason, and you've got a lot of observations, but maybe we can start with your thoughts on the future sources of innovation and economic growth for Taiwan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to be back at Stanford. I've always enjoyed the community and also the type of diversity of ideas that sort of give innovation in this very place. And I think the problem we try to grapple with is, what is the next economic growth engine beyond semiconductor? But if you look at the sort of formula of semiconductor, you realize it's actually the segmentation of the excellence in manufacturing and in innovation that Taiwan perfected. It's actually a model that Taiwan can leapfrog from now. So I feel to answer this question, it is not a technological question as to is Moore's law dead, or is TSMC will be fallen under the victim of U.S.-China geopolitical risks. It is actually a problem of positioning. And I want to go back to 30 years ago that Taiwanese government bet on semiconductor sector at this very place, recruit Morris Chang, return to Taiwan. not just to start a company, but actually to really start an industry, which is the entire semiconductor ecosystem. And over the last 30 years, the ecosystem is built seamlessly in a tiny island on Taiwan. So if you think about this model and you think about where then, how we could export this model to other countries and to make Taiwan relevant, it's something I would encourage and advise our government to think hard and long about. And I want to say that the idea of an ecosystem is very hard to duplicate. We've seen TSMC's effort to build a fab in Arizona. It's been delayed over and over. It's because of the lack of ecosystem. And to think about this, Taiwan needs to reposition itself to be an ecosystem innovator. And this could trickle down to the biotech sector, could be the manufacturing, and to be supply chain. And in fact, our strength really lies in do the things that other countries don't want to do, but do it so well that everybody wants Taiwan to do it. So in the 80s, it was semiconductor. And now semiconductor become the crown jewel of US-China competition. And all of a sudden, everywhere I go, everybody's asking, can we have a TSMC fab? But TSMC fab is not a bubble tea shop. You can't build it overnight. Well, and there's a huge lack of understanding of how the ecosystem is structured. And I think Steve probably can talk more about the idea of talent and how do Taiwan develop into a talent-driven island. But I also wanted to touch on the idea that the whole world is now grappling with the China risk or the exposure of the doing business in China. The whole idea of China plus one is Taiwan's opportunity. So if you think about China's economy, over the years, Taiwan's manufacturing industry has played a critical role, an integral role to build Chinese economy. And we've done it so well that it's becoming part of what makes China today. But if time has come for the supply chain to diversify, and Taiwan should do it again, but this time with more sophistication to move high-end supply chain manufacturing elsewhere to Southeast Asia or other places where Taiwan can still lead that innovation and then to make sure that Taiwan can still gain the edge. So the whole idea of China plus one and how can Taiwan play a role, I think is critical. And then on top of that, what Taiwan government should do, I think there are three important ideas. If you look at Taiwan, our foreign reserve, it's the world's 5th largest. We effectively have more sitting on $500 billion US of foreign reserve. It's a huge amount of money on our foreign reserve bank that is underutilized. I encourage our government to set up a sovereign wealth fund to invest in global projects. That is how you can export Taiwan's knowledge, know-how, innovation, and manufacturing. That's how your government can be the leading driver to develop this. And it's not too hard. Take 5%, 3%, or even a small percentage of that foreign reserve, and then do what Singapore has done with the Temasek over the years, and then you will be so much more involved and also integrated in the global economic ecosystem. Secondly, I would say immigration policy is very important. Taiwan, unfortunately, has the world's lowest birth rate. It's becoming our national crisis. And if we don't employ a so-called smart immigration policy, that is to attract skilled labor or knowledge labor, I think we will be fallen into what Japan is now grappling with, an aging society. And in fact, in 2060, 60% of our population will be more than 65 years old. And it's a huge existential crisis that we need to deal with. And thirdly is the education. Education has been a sector that is very closed off in Taiwan. If many of you who come from Taiwan or have studied in Taiwan, you realize how rigid our education system is. And we need to reform our educational system to make it welcoming to foreigners to study in Taiwan, stay in Taiwan, to work in Taiwan, and to be able to continuously contribute to Taiwan. And I think this mentality of foreigners who come to Taiwan will snatch jobs away from our own local population, I think it's something that we need to get past. And I think now Taiwan is really at the best moment in history. First of all of a sudden, Taiwan is not just about Shaobin and Xiaolongbao, and then
Din Tai Fung.
Din Tai Fung and night market. Now we can, for the first time in history, we have very significant and indisputable position in the world because of semiconductor chips, because of people like Steve Chen, who's willing to move his family to Taiwan and then has been living there for years. So this type of things we should be reckoned with, and then use this as strength to develop the next wave of economic growth engine. I'll stop here.
Great. Well, that's the perfect segue to Steve Chen. Let me just say that, first of all, Steve, how grateful it is, how grateful we are to have you here. And second of all, how extraordinarily valuable it is to have you on this panel in two respects. Number one, you not only think about entrepreneurship, but you are an entrepreneur, and you're not done being an entrepreneur. And second of all, you're not only Taiwanese American in having been born in Taiwan and raised in the US, but your life is very much planted in both places. So we've heard a kind of, from the top down view of what the challenges might look like. You are innovating now in the startup world in Taiwan. So what does it look like from the personal experience of an entrepreneur right now, and how do you react to what's been said?
Yeah, I think, it's good to be here, right? It's good to be back in Silicon Valley, just having lived here for 20 years. But really, when we moved to Taiwan in 2019, this was a few months before COVID started, and it was just a kitchen remodel. But kitchen remodels in Atherton always take a long time. So we said, in the same time that I came to the US when I was 8, I wanted my own kids, Asian Americans, to really grow up and have some experience there in Asia. But it wasn't supposed to be more than a year. 3 months after we get there, COVID strikes. And actually, I think they ended up taking school off in Taiwan for 1 week, but that was it. And the good thing was that school continued. And I remember we still come back to the Bay Area every summer, so we were still hanging out with the friends and families from Phillips Brooks or from Bing, where they went to school here at Stanford. And it looked like a lot of Zoom sessions were going on with their classmates that were still in the Bay Area. So at that point, we were extending our stay as we started planning forward. But even after when COVID was over, we're still there 5-6 years later, and it looks like it's going to be indefinite, that we're going to be just planted there in Taiwan. But I think some of the issues that, especially as we compare Taiwan compared to, say, Singapore or Hong Kong, it's a lot less welcoming to outsiders, to foreigners, like you said. And that's a heavy influence on our part to work with the gold card system that we mentioned in 2018 that was started. The gold card is just a card. It is gold, but it's a card. But after you get out of that airport, you're left on your own, and if you don't really know the connections, I think there are all these bullet points that people say about the advantages that Taiwan has over its neighboring countries when it comes to technology. But when you're really trying to utilize this, especially when COVID struck and a lot of people actually applied for the gold card and moved there, and so there was a large part of many people in this room that were from Silicon Valley. They were based there, entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs from Silicon Valley. They were based there in Taiwan, but they found it difficult to be able to do something in Taiwan, right? And I think that many of them, as soon as things were lifted, they came back to the US. But a few of us have stayed there in Taiwan, and it's really, and even have created companies. And so I thought that was a great experience for me to really understand what it's like to be an entrepreneur in Taiwan. And I have a lot more to share about that. I mean, I think like just to have to even here, it's like people would be giving up salaries for stock equity, stock options, where there you have to explain what the stock option packages even mean for them, right? I mean, it's just a very different mindset. They would much rather be working for TSMC on a career path than something that, regardless of the opportunities, if it may not be around in another 6 months to a year, here you see people on their LinkedIn, they'll put in, regardless of whether the company had a good exit or no exit, they would still put it on their LinkedIn resumes. They're very embarrassed about putting anything that resembles failure on identified to themselves. And so a lot of this was kind of learned through self-experience of what it was like to start a company in Taiwan in the exact same way that we would have done it if we were to do it here in Silicon Valley. And there's I think that there are a few other serial entrepreneurs that are based in Silicon. Calvin Lin's a big one that we worked with, collaborated, co-invested a lot here in Silicon Valley. He's there now, the head of the Gold Card program. We started throwing more events on a regular basis to try to invite folks with the Gold Card, with entrepreneur experience coming from outside of Taiwan, as well as connecting with some of the local resources that we found in Taiwan to try to in some ways recreate a bit of the Silicon Valley experience. But we realize that there are deficiencies in the Taiwan ecosystem that can't be met in just Taiwan on an island. And so we're starting to do a lot more in similar fashion to what I think Korea's done, what Singapore has done in sending many of their entrepreneurs, what Israel has done in sending their entrepreneurs and having them physically move to Silicon Valley to be really exposed to the networking and the environment and the ecosystem here. So we're trying to do and trying to convince the Taiwanese government to do that. So in September, they're opening up an office here in Menlo Park where they're going to start being able to send. We're going to work with the entrepreneurs there in Taiwan for about 8 weeks, but then after that, being able to send them here and really plant them in Silicon Valley and being able to work with the local environments here. But I think like many of us believe that there's a lot of resources that still remain kind of untapped, but it's not, we're learning it the hard way. It's difficult to tap those resources in the same manner that we do in Silicon Valley.
Great, and it's my sense that one of the visions or ambitions of the CHIPS Act is that there would be more cooperation between Taiwan and the United States in the development and design of these technologies. So on May 20th, a new president of Taiwan will be inaugurated, William Lai Ching-te. He's forming his government now. I think answering the question I am going to pose you right now is probably not the only way that you have the ability to convey your policy ideas to the incoming administration, but it's the only way our audience will hear right now. So I'd like to ask each of you, if you were writing a memo to President Lai saying, here's what I think you might do to foster and accelerate the next generation of economic innovation and international competitiveness in Taiwan. Here's 3 or 4 policy steps. What would you put in that memo? And you've already, some of you touched on this. You talked about energy, electricity, for example, CY. But if you want to crystallize your recommendations, elaborate them, what would you put in the memo?
Okay, the memo, the number one thing, some of you might not agree, is to improve relations with China. The Taiwan-China relations is getting more and more sensitive every day, and the situation is going to get the worse. I'm not too optimistic on that. Despite recently Xi Jinping made a very friendly gesture toward Taiwan, but ultimately, he has a goal. He wants to have his legacy. And Lai Ching-te, as you know, is on the other extreme, a pragmatic Taiwan independent supporter. So how to do that? So Taiwan inevitably, you're gonna caught in between. But we have to look at that as issue seriously. The issue is about some of them you may touch about is whether to choose side. People say some people say we should choose side, but some of my clients' business, I'm an investment banker for 37 years. I serve many companies, and they don't have the luxury of to choose side. And then still many of the largest company you might not know. They are the OEMs manufacturer for Huawei, for BYD, for Xiaomi, and many of them. And then you see the 红色供应链, the rest supply chain is growing stronger. So some people argue that the Taiwan should go to the things that China don't touch and should go to the other supply chain. And the U.S. government is very happily to form a so-called democratic supply chain and the Western countries. But whether it will ultimately work, I don't know. But I think unless the issue is resolved, I think companies going to be very difficult. Companies are already facing the difficulty of moving to other countries. So yes, companies are moving to, they are no longer, they don't want to stay in China to do manufacturing. They are moving to other countries, but they are facing daunting challenges. So that is my recommendation number one. Recommendation number two, energy policy. The energy policy is very important. That is not just the local enterprise said. The American Chamber of Commerce, Japanese, the Chamber of Commerce, the European one, they are all complaining that the lack of power shortage. And so the lack of security and plus the lack of power is making Taiwan vulnerable. Taiwan is now they're moving to the semiconductor 2 nano, but the TSMC, it won't support that. Who's going to be the biggest beneficiary? It will be the Japanese. So the Japanese are doing everything to regain the glory they had in mid-'80s. Some of you may not know. Japan was number one until U.S. Killed Japan's semiconductor industry. Japan is trying to take advantage of this opportunity to regain back to the number one status. So Taiwan needs to be there are different ways, but. Many mistakes have been made in the past, So the nuclear, I think a lot of enterprise I talk to is inevitable, but that is a daunting challenge. The third recommendation is I talk about the balance. Lai Ching-te, he's a new cabinet. I don't know whether he is extremely capable. The new Minister of Economic Affairs, Guo Zhihui, and Richard Guo is my client. Topco, he's a semiconductor company, semiconductor manufacturing. He has excellent connection with the semiconductor industry, excellent connection with Japan. Japan will play a very important role for Taiwan in the future in the Indo-Pacific geopolitical dynamics. But what about other industry? So the William Lai say that it is he say his cabinet is called the AI cabinet, but the AI A stands for active and I stands for innovative, so slightly different. But in a way that the policy, the future is still AI and semiconductor. That is still the future, but that's gonna cause the resource imbalance. And there's economic terms on this called 荷兰病, a Dutch disease. That means the imbalance of power. It has happened. The government doesn't want to recognize it, so it needs to reallocate the resources. Otherwise, other industry gonna feel not good. And number four is to train people the capability of re-globalization. U.S. is talking about deglobalization, but for Taiwan, the most important thing is the re-globalization. Because in the past, the globalization for Taiwan means in China. China is but now it's no longer true. But new tasks need to be learning. Earlier we talked about the entrepreneurship. I brought in Amazon AWS Innovation Center to Taiwan. Later I would address the entrepreneurship, but that's not so successful. Taiwan, the people, the needs I think the accelerator Taiwan needs is to accelerate the people of going abroad. So I'm starting a new initiative lately, called HRX, Human Resource Accelerator. So empower people the capability of going abroad. And that capability is lost. 50 years ago, people like us, our age, will come to Stanford, Harvard, study, their roles, But in the last 30 years, people either they are very happy just to stay in Taiwan or they go to China. So the international touch is lost. Taiwan is isolated. The last point I want to say is that give younger people the more opportunity. The younger people, entrepreneurship. Taiwan the startup is bad. You know, if you talk about the unicorn, there's maybe 2 unicorns in Taiwan. If you look at the last 10 years, in many countries, Singapore, the Vietnam, you know, there are many, and also South Korea. In the top 10 enterprise, many of them are the name you never heard of, like Coupang in South Korea. Now it's like top 10. It's an e-commerce company. And in Southeast Asia, we have Grab, we have a GoTo, and we have SEA. You know, it's the parent company of, and it was a founder is a Stanford GSB graduate, who's from mainland China originally. But so the startup company, everybody working for big company, the startup capability. So I think give younger people the more opportunity, not just the economic fighting the rights in Taiwan, but for them to go abroad, to go international. That would be my recommendation to Will and Lai.
Okay, thank you very much. You managed to get a lot in just a few minutes. Rose, go ahead.
Well, it's hard to follow. CY already covered most of the points that I have in mind as well, but I just want to add a few points. China, in fact, when we talk about China +1, Taiwan in open times is considered part of China. So they're increasing pressure from large corporations, primarily in the US, to encourage or to request R&D or manufacturing to move out of Taiwan as well. So to deal with the relationship with China is important for Taiwan's own existential challenge. Otherwise, everybody's going to ask you to move out of Taiwan as well. So I just want to add that point on China. And also on the shortage of electricity and clean energy, 80% of Taiwan's electricity is by burning coal or natural gas. It's still 80%, right? So we're far from the kind of the goal to help our industry to be able to move into the path of low carbon emission or even race to kind of net zero goal if the country does not provide clean energy sources. So I would say this is crucial, not just having stable electricity supply, but also clean energy. Okay, whether the government has to reinstitute or kind of bring back nuclear powers, there's that ideology in Taiwan has been promoted in the last 10, 20 years that power plants is just bad, right? So power energy is just bad. But we're grappling with some reality issue that Taiwan is so short of clean energy for the industry to be able to stay competitive, because now Taiwan is such an export country. Once you don't have kind of clean energy as a kind of zone 1, your carbon cost is going to be skyrocketed, right? When you export it to other countries. So that's number 2. The other thing is that we talked about the diversification of our economy away from only semiconductor. I would encourage our new president to really look at some of the other examples, such as Finland, right? Think about Finland in the 90s and early 2020, early 2000. The country's economy was largely dependent on Nokia, right? It was a Nokia-dependent economy, right? And then we all know what happened to Nokia, right? So the economy went down, but luckily the government was early enough to be able to really start diversifying its talents, resource, conducting educational reforms to bring innovation into the system so that the country no longer just rely on one thing. So now you look at Finland, there are a lot of successful gaming companies coming from Finland, right? If the government has not done something collectively, including bringing the resources, capital, education, train talent, and change the mentality, the society and the country wouldn't have had the opportunity to kind of take a much more diversified economic growth path. So that, I would say, is important for our government to really take note of. Transformation is never easy. If every president is only looking at the next 4 years, maybe nobody is going to do anything about anything major. But this is so critical. And one, last but definitely not least, Taiwan's private sector is incredibly resilient and incredibly adaptive. I would just urge our government just to listen to them. Don't try to do too much to lead them because they're probably going to lead them in the wrong way and impose the regulations totally are not suitable for what the private sector really is looking for. Government should focus on providing the essentials that the private sectors can do, right? Such as energy, such as education, right? Jason alluded that our educational challenges is not just the birth rate being low, but also due to the birth rate low, at the same time, Taiwan has too many universities. Imagine a population of Taiwan, we have 148 universities and colleges. And with the total number of college students right now in the campus, less than 1 million. So every single year, the schools are having difficulty to recruit enough of the students, and therefore what they do, they lower the threshold. So therefore, as a result, of lowering the student quality, and also those colleges are still underfunded. So therefore, the quality of the education is really being compromised. So I would say the government should focus on the fundamental, the importance, also open the gate to let more professionals such as Steve to be willing to come to work in Taiwan and enjoy Taiwan's healthcare system, at least, right? Yeah.
Okay, well, Jason, I know, they don't know, that you actually have a 10-point plan. We don't have time for all 10 points, but I hope you can at least speak to what government can do to foster technological innovation and workforce development, and then whatever else you want to share.
Yeah, so I would say 2 key points. One is resilience, the other is deterrence. I think our government needs to develop a whole of a nation resilience strategy when it comes to dealing with China. And I say this because we need to recognize that Taiwan, on the one side, is dependent on U.S. security commitment. So it's important that on the defense side that we continue to work with the U.S. to strengthen the partnership. But on the market, on the economy, Taiwan is interdependent with China. As of the year 2021, our trade surplus with China is 130 billion. And 90% of our trade with China, guess what, is semiconductor components. So for each chip to be made in Taiwan, gets shipped to China to be packaged, tested, shipped back to Taiwan to do some more work, and then shipped back to China, and then distributed around the world. This has been the recipe of a globalization. But times are now different. So we need to rethink about the sort of shift that's undertaken because of the US and China geopolitical competition. And what I mean by this whole of nation approach is our government needs to do a better job in bringing up the awareness of this urgency that is going from our medical sector, our economic sector, our energy sector, to be truly acutely aware of the potential threat that might be imminent or looming. What I fear most is that when crisis happens, it happens suddenly. It doesn't happen gradually, but it happens suddenly. And many of you who've grown up in Taiwan or lived in Taiwan, who traveled to Taiwan, you realize it's a happy-go-lucky place. While the rest of the world is talking about a Taiwan contingency, but we are just living on a very happy island. But I think we really need to be made aware of the acute crisis that's looming, and also government use this opportunity to reinvigorate industries, and then to do things that will basically create new opportunities. And I believe this is very important. And there are 5 important sectors I feel that must be addressed. One is our critical infrastructure, our cyber, and our undersea cable. or just anything that's connected to Taiwan. And our power grid is surprisingly all concentrated in the southern part of Taiwan. So we generate power in the south and then shipped to the north to be used by Science Park, by TSMC, and this is all very dangerous. So we need to figure out how to diversify our energy source. And when we talk about energy, even TSMC admit that energy would be their biggest concern. And I feel the nuclear power will be a very important element to think about whether that we could bring that back, at least for a stabilized use of the power. And going forward, this would be taken advantage by our adversaries on our energy dependency and energy security. As of now, our energy relies on 90% of import of LNG, and all these energy tankers go through Taiwan Strait. Admittedly, there are 250 tankers sail through Taiwan Strait, just carrying energy, LNG to Japan, to Taiwan, and to Korea. And so when China blockade Taiwan Strait, this could create
You
a
mean
huge...
if.
What's that?
You said when. I hope you meant if.
If. So by doing that, I think that's super important. And then lastly, Taiwan is caught in between U.S. and China, and when two elephants fight, whatever is underneath gets trampled. So our goal at a Taiwan contingency or, God forbidden, an invasion by China is not to defeat them, but to deter them and to sustain before our allies can respond. And so our government really need to think, what does that mean for an island like Taiwan, which, to be honest, is isolated. We rely on electricity by ourselves, food import, stockpiling of critical materials, and all these things, I feel our civilian sector is very undertrained, undereducated. So these type of things are very important, and I think at this point in time, we would not want to see a contingency, but I think we need to be made aware of what preparation that need to take in order to prepare for something like that. So these two words I would just say to our new president that's coming to the office: deterrence and whole of a nation resilience approach.
Mm-hmm. Steve?
Well, I mean, I was just, right before I headed off to the airport, I was meeting with Kevin Lin again, someone that I've been collaborating a lot with, both in Silicon Valley and then in Taiwan. And he had just raised money from NDF, National Development Fund there. It was like a 6-month process, and they force you to do a number of check boxes to have to operate certain things in Taiwan. It's just for Taiwan's benefit. And with the upcoming election, and I think May 20th, a lot of the ministers or the head of the ministries are going to be replaced. So I've been helping out with the gold card system, and since January, every one of the meetings are just verbal meetings with no actionable items, because we just say until we know who the new minister is, there's no point in having these meetings. So I mean, I think there's one suggestion is just get rid of the Ministry of Science, put us in charge. We can do this. I mean, we talk about like all the things that need to be done to be able to expedite, to optimize things, but a lot of it is just, it's a hassle dealing with it in Taiwan when it comes to starting companies, when it comes to fundraising, when it comes to getting more talent into Taiwan. It's slowed down because of the way that the ministries work.
Steve, we should make you a minister.
I don't think I qualify.
I
give up I don't think I qualify.
He's American.
Yeah.
Too bad.
No, but even like the gold card, it's like I think it's a dispute. I think on both sides, they weren't sure if because you get free health care, and then they ask from a lot of the people, it's like, well, what are these people adding to the value of Taiwan? And so
That's crazy. There are like 9,000 holders of the visa, right? But the expectation is a lot higher, right? They expected to have a lot more. It's just they have to make it easy for people to apply for. So yeah.
And then we work with the Ministry of Science like for 2-3 years. We were working on a certain program, but then you find out it's getting replaced. Then we start over again.
Well, bureaucracy, that's what we call it.
I'll just say 2 things before I open it up to your questions. The first is, whenever you think about asking someone like Steve Chen to maybe go into government, you do want to weigh the opportunity costs to the economy. The second thing is, I'll just see if everybody's awake here. I'm going to make a prediction. I had a 50% success rate in predicting the winner of the last 2 presidential elections.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, I have a 50% chance of being right in this prediction. But this is a prediction that is based completely on logic, without any inside information. I predict that the new government will not complete the closure of nuclear power in Taiwan, and that the next president of Taiwan, despite being from a political party that is pledged to end nuclear power in Taiwan, will modify that plan. And the reason why I predict that is just logic. It's, first of all, everything you've said about Taiwan's urgent electricity needs and the gap between what's being provided by renewable energy now and what is needed. And second of all, the resilience in terms of the potential for scenarios in which there could be a blockade, an embargo, or something. So many of us have been trying to make these points publicly, privately, that it's an economic issue, it's a national security issue. Anyway, I have a 50% chance of it. So now what we're going to do is take questions in batches of 3 or 4. So we give a variety of questions answered. Please try to be concise. This gentleman was very clever because he wore a shirt that would make it impossible that he would not that he would not be called
Short.
Definitely the weeb in the audience here. I guess this is maybe a complex question, but so much of the conversation right now is about preventing invasion, war, deterrence. I feel like Taiwan has a unique position to be a broker of conversation between China and the US, and I'm just wondering, is there anyone that's taking on that role? You know, very difficult to sort of get people to have conversations about going on, but right now trade is going down, and there's expats, US expats are leaving China, and so the opportunity for conversations between the US and China is getting less and less and less, even though there's still a substantial amount of trade going on between the countries. There's still a number of Chinese studying in the US. I just wonder if Taiwan sees itself in a position to broker some of those conversations, or is it so volatile that that's not possible?
Okay, Jason, and then we'll come to you.
So I tend to see things from the health standpoint. And I look at the Chinese leader, and he's in his 70s, and he's obese, right? And he's under a tremendous amount of pressure. What are the contingencies for Taiwan if a Chinese leader China would go into chaos? I also look at Vladimir Putin and his health as he was giving the interview. And so, you know, that has to be into this political calculus. So those are my observations.
Of course, it needs to be noted that these are not the 2 oldest leaders of major countries.
Yeah, I was going to say.
All right, please go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Xuan. I'm a GSB MBA and as well as a Harvard Kennedy. I'm from China, but I also have relatives living in Taipei. That's the reason, you know, I travel in between. One of the problem I found is that by the time I studied in university, which is like 10, 15 years ago, there are like growing number of the people-to-people communication between the China mainland and Taiwan, and there's like growing number of like Taiwanese like young people. They went to China mainland, and there was also a lot of Chinese students who went to Taipei to study. But we can see those kind of trend has been stopped like for a long time. And I guess a lot of speakers like today you mentioned about the importance of maintaining a good relationship with China, and I guess like government to government relationships one same, but there's another like people to people connection. Is there any like suggestion like you can probably put forward to increase the people to people relationship right now, like for the people across the street? Thank you so much.
Okay, over here, all the way on this side, and then to the gentleman with the white shirt, all the way over there, and then we'll come back to our panel.
Hi, Tabitha. I'm a master's in international policy student here, cyber policy focus, and I'm also like very familiar with Taiwan. I've studied there multiple times. I studied at Shida, Taida, and I've been studying Chinese for a very long time. So just to preface that, so yeah, it's. Going to some people's point about foreign talent and attracting foreign talent to come to Taiwan, I was just there for like the capstone experience of my program, and there's another group too who's doing a different topic, and I'm the only one who could speak Chinese, and it was like very difficult for them to get around, which just brought up to me like how difficult it is and how important knowing Chinese is just to like be able to fully experience Taiwan. So. And with the fact that most people, most Americans at least, when they're learning Chinese, if they are learning Chinese, it's simplified characters because that's just what I guess was set up first. And so yeah, when you go to Taiwan at first, it's a big shock because you can't read anything. Because you're like, I've been studying so long. Anyways, I would like it if the panel could speak a little bit more to that. If I will say the trend has been getting like better. Every time I go back, there's more and more resources for people. There's people around and English stuff. But yeah, I guess if you guys could speak to that more, where do you see the trends going? Do you think there's anything more that government or private sector or anybody could be doing to bring in that talent and help that?
Okay, sir, go ahead.
My name is Zikai Shao. And I'm a board of the Friends of Stanford University Foundation, and we met in Taipei last year. Okay, I would like to point out, my parents grew up was born when we were part of Japan. So like my grandfather was a Japanese teacher in the Japanese school, and my father grew up speaking Japanese. So when I was a kid, and my uncles, my father, they at dinner they would speak Taiwanese, and then they would burst into Japanese, which I couldn't understand. And so my father studied Japanese until he was like 13 years old or 14 years old, 1945. So they had Japanese education, and they had this deep influence from the Japanese that, 明治维新, so it was like in the 1820s, 1868, yeah, that, so at that time, Japan was under the American influence that they had to modernize. And there was a group of young people, Japanese people, who went to the US, went to Europe, and they came back. And they said, no, we are done with China. We are done with the Eastern culture. So they started this 脱亚入欧, 脱亚入欧. So, and they started the 明治维新, and they were successful, and they become what Japan is right now. And my parents, they were under this influence. So they were thinking, if Taiwan in the future could be more modernized, and we could 脱亚入欧. They had this kind of thinking as well, but only like 100 years later. So this is something I think still some part of the Taiwanese population still had this. Can we be more like Western countries, like Europe, like the US, and be away from the Chinese influence? So that's something I think I would like to point out, that there's some people still thinking in this direction. Thank you.
So we have a couple of questions that ask about whether people-to-people communication across the strait can be advanced or encouraged, whether Taiwan can somehow broker more communication and better communication between the PRC and the USA. A question about maybe Taiwan needs culturally as well as elsewhere, to look elsewhere, maybe better functioning ability in English, just to be more open and welcoming of diverse talent coming into Taiwan to help it get to the next generation of economic dynamism, and how to attract that talent to Taiwan. And then, I don't know if anyone wants to answer the question of what happens if China becomes chaotic, but I can share thoughts on that at the end. Maybe we'll reverse the order and start with you, Steve.
Sure. I mean, I think addressing some of these points, right? I mean, I think, again, my Chinese reading isn't very good. So even when I'm in Taiwan, most of my news does come from U.S. sources. And every time you pull it up, it's just talking about the dangers of living in Taiwan, mainly between U.S. and the conflicts over U.S. and China. But I think the reason that I'm still living in Taiwan, even though we have a house here in Atherton, in Northern California, is that I think it's a better place for families. It's a better place for kids. It's a better place for gun safety. It's a better place for when it comes to taxis, drivers coming back to you. If you've left something in the car, they'll drive it back to you and say, you've left something in the car. I love that you don't have to tip.
Yes.
Taiwan. I mean, just and like at 11 p.m., people are walking around with their grandparents, are walking around with their dogs, still taking strolls in the park. There's parks everywhere in Taiwan. Everything's walking distance. I mean, it's and everything from just the fact that every Saturday morning it's like using Uber Eats and this time coming back, just having to learn how to cook again this week. Coming back to California. So I mean, I think there's I think, like, for example, like language is a huge problem, and especially with traditional. And I think even Hong Kong is starting to move away from that with the influence from China. But there are a lot of reasons that Taiwan is a great place to live. And unfortunately, you will not know that stepping out of the airport on day one. It's going to take 3, 4, 5, 6 months to really settle in. But, you know, I mean, I think in some ways it's like the advice for doing a startup is just try it once. You'll like it. But I think the missing part still of Taiwan, I think, is that from a like a comfort of living, from the closeness of the family, it's been great for us. But I think from a working standpoint, from a professional standpoint, and what we're really dedicating our energies to is that if we want to really live there, we have to make it also a stable place to be able to start companies, to be able to do what we're used to doing in Silicon Valley. And that is something that is missing.
Yeah, I'll say two things. On the outset, nothing that our incoming president, Legislator, say or will not say will change how Xi Jinping views him or how Xi Jinping views Taiwan. That is that we still have to be very, very much aware of the potential contingency that might be, leading because of the accidental escalation. And secondly, I feel there's a short period of window that Taiwan and China can repair relationship. I say this because, number one, Legislator appointed a man and affair handler who is a less ideological driven person, Chen Wen-chan. And he is now sitting on the Cross-Strait Foundation for Exchange. And primarily, this is a quasi-government foundation that promotes people-to-people exchange and business exchanges. So I think if Lai is smart and as he is, he should say some things that will seemingly send in signals that Taiwan is willing to engage with China, but with caution, obviously. And what does that mean? Okay, I think it means to resume people-to-people exchange, scholarly exchange. There are practically no mainland students in Taiwan right now. I think we need to have more of that so the two sides can understand each other. And secondly, on the national level, it will be hard for governments to work with government, the DPP administration to work with CCP. But what LIE could do is to allow city-to-city exchange. So meaning that, some city delegation can visit mainland China cities and vice versa. They can come over. And thirdly is to lessen restriction or to remove or reduce restriction of the mainland tourists coming to Taiwan. Imagine if you have mainlanders running around Taiwan, and I think that China would think twice about attacking Taiwan. and I think that's a good deterrence. And then lastly, I think it's very important. Xi Jinping, in his mind, he's thinking about if this is going forward to his fourth term in 2028, he would have to have a reason to legitimize his leadership. And Taiwan shouldn't present itself to that for the excuse for him to mobilize any sort of negative movement on Taiwan. So I think to think about this, people-to-people exchange are the best, and it's really the best way to deter and avoid any confrontation. And to be frank, we now have more than 700,000 mainland wives in Taiwan. They all have the second generation of the Taiwanese children. So I think there are a lot of ways that we can think about this, and people-to-people exchange, I feel, is the most important to go forward.
Rose?
I would just add a little bit to your question. It is really true. Only probably 5-6 years ago, going to China is a very common thing, no matter for business reason or for tourism. But interestingly, I remember lately, I was sitting down with a bunch of young people having dinner together. So we talked about where we're going for vacation. None of them ever mentioned China. So I got really curious. Well, why not going to China? They looked at me as if, why would I? Just very interesting dynamic that has changed very noticeably. My family are from China, so for us, China is always very close to what we consider as our I wouldn't call it roots, but yeah, for my parents, definitely roots. But due to all these political reasons and also media, I would say if our government want to amend or to repair, or even just to send a right signal, having student exchange, or even just to allow some more positive news about China will help. Right now, just like if you ask the young people, they really just feel like China is separate, very distant emotionally, and that really has to be worked on. That has to be addressed. Otherwise, it's not just a political issue. It's trickled down to even people to people. It's emotional. None of that is going to do any good for either sides. The other thing I wanted to address when you talk about Taiwan has not been as welcoming, it's true. Taiwan has been very homogeneous for a very long time. But now you begin to see the country, especially as our businesses started to, kind of going abroad and also bring international talents to Taiwan, become increasingly a important priority, given the shortage of manpower. By the way, there's one statistic that shows by 2032, Taiwan are short of 400,000 skilled workers. 400,000, so it's not a small number. Steve can only fill, one, right? So we have like 400,000 of them. Right? So there's a huge gap. But however, because of the demand and the awareness, clearly that you see, even corporations, companies on the private sector, in the workplace, people begin to wake up to, different culture, diverse backgrounds. Which languages should we conduct in meetings when they have to start dealing with the manufacturing facilities outside Taiwan? So all of those are good signals and good tips for people to really be aware. The diversity issue, diversity inclusion, years ago, 5 years ago, if we talked about diversity inclusion, people laughed in Taiwan. Like, we don't have that issue. Because they felt like, well, we're all Taiwanese. We don't have a diversity issue. Right? Yeah, that's the diversity issue. Yeah. But now people start having a lot more this type of a conversation. Diversity, inclusion, because we're dealing with multicultural workplace now. At the same time, we have cross-generational challenge because the Taiwan's success was built upon a generation of baby boomer entrepreneurs who take their work ethics and their capability and build successful industries. But now we have the Gen Z is going to become the main workforce going forward. And there's a huge generational divide. So I think this is the great time for Taiwan, general, no matter public sector, the government, or the workplace, begin to wake up to cultural differences from cultural, generational differences. It's uncomfortable, but people are kind of starting to address, yeah.
CY?
Yeah, I want to address the first question, this gentleman's question about could Taiwan be a broker? That you meant no, Taiwan cannot. Taiwan's fate is not determined by Taiwan; it's determined by United States and by China. Taiwan does not have its power, realistically, to determine its own fate. Should Taiwan and the China people interact with more? Definitely. Can the situation be altered? No, it could only get worse. But China has recognized that it's trying to do something. That's why Xi Jinping talked about peaceful unification. He talked with Biden in San Francisco. The Biden say peace is okay, reunification is not okay. If you ask the Taiwan people, do they want peace or war? They say peace, but the reunification is too strong a word. So who is the broker? Actually, it's ex-president Ma Ying-jeou. So he actually, his trip to China is not his volunteer. He is chosen by Xi Jinping to go to China because nobody, no party, KMT, DPP, TPP can do that. Because if they do that, they will be accused of the Mai Tai, they will be because as a traitor, so the populism is on both sides of the street, in China as well as in Taiwan. Also in China, you're from China, China, you probably heard about the 农夫山泉, in case you don't, it's a mineral water, mineral water, just the cap of the mineral water is red. Some people say that symbols like Japan. So the most popular mineral water suddenly from here, drop to bottom. In Taiwan, and now if you ask the younger generation, they say, 90% of the people, they don't think they belong to China. But Xi Jinping, posed a very important message. Actually, this is a new policy. The new gesture, he said, is so how do you go to peaceful reunification without war? And that he re-emphasized that last week, the KMT legislator Fu Kunqi, took a delegate. 7 legislators went to China. China has sent some people. Wang Huning, he's like the number 2 or 3, for dealing with number 2 in dealing with Taiwan affairs. So that shows China actually cares very much about Taiwan. And Xi Jinping in his meeting with Ma Ying-jeou has a very important message. I would say in Chinese, is the concept of 中华民族. You say, we are both Chinese. But some of you here, you may not agree. So Taiwanese is not Chinese. But if they say, if we are Chinese, then 事情都好谈. We can talk about it. Chinese don't fight. Chinese don't kill Chinese. So if you recognize we are part of Chinese, we can talk about it. If you want to have a separate identity, that is okay. But it is so it's no longer talking about 92 consensus. That is no longer talk about one country, one the one system. So it is toward that direction, and then so it has a certain interactions coming. And the market is a thrill, so the talk about, the China just say, well, we're gonna open for Matsu, which is a small island for the tourism. My client, the tourist stock, going up, the tourism stock going up. So people are thrilled. They want to go back to the 8 years ago, 10 years ago when the Chinese tourism, and then also that there are some fruits, they say that we're going to purchase some of the fruits. And the farmers in southern Taiwan, they are thrilled. So what I'm saying is that China just give you a little bit, the favor, and the Taiwan people are thrilled. So if you ask the most of Taiwan people, they definitely don't want to go war. I'm a speaker at the National Chen University, 国际关系中心 International Relations Center. There's one professor there who did a survey of the younger generation. Most of the students say, if China attack, they're gonna surrender. Of course, the U.S. doesn't want to hear that. But most people say they will either surrender, they're gonna run away. That is the younger generation. I have Americans keep asking me, why don't you fight? Francis Fukuyama here at the Stanford University, he said his biggest concern when visiting Taiwan is that the Taiwanese people haven't shown the willingness to fight. And he said the U.S. is not going to fight for Taiwan, despite John Mearsheimer say, yeah, but if Taiwanese people don't stand up and fight for themselves. But what we're seeing is that there's a lack of that. But then Xi Jinping said what he's trying to do is to show a friendly gesture. So it is very important, actually it will be coming in 2 weeks, what will be William Lai say about in his presidential election. But after all,
inauguration.
Inauguration. But after all, what he said, ultimately is not that important because they have already decided that this person is not reliable. So in the past, there is the Tsai Ing-wen, there's I want to observe, 听其言观其行, listen to what you say, and I want to see, observe what you do. But I know you are like that. But then I would just what the China doing is ignore DPP, is dealing with either KMT or the general public of Taiwanese people who recognize the Zhonghua means, who are willing to dealing with China. That is the tactics you can say they are doing. The last question is with regard to Jason. Your question is about the health. You are a health expert. But I would say, I worry more about the health of President Biden than about Xi Jinping. I think he has a bigger chance, if you want to bet, you can put about 50% chance who can last longer. And then also, the biggest challenge for Taiwan is President Biden is you might view differently. He has a less than 50% chance to win, and now is look at the Palestinian. He didn't say a word, and so the charm, the chance of winning is higher and higher, and God knows what he will do, and it is the biggest threat to Taiwan. So that we are. So and China say we don't want a war, and the U.S. say prepare for war, prepare fighting. And the Taiwanese people are also don't want a war. And so what you're going to see a lot of interaction. That's all I want to say.
Go ahead, Jason.
Can I comment on that? Okay, so here's what I want to say for the record. I think Xi's proposal to Taiwan doesn't work for two reasons. One is timing. Two is generational and demographic differences. I feel like the timing has already disappeared for a Taiwan and China negotiation, and that boat has sailed. For the following reason, our major voting demographic now is the young population, and if you look at this time around the election, and basically the election results, you vote on China factor, and that has become an issue that Xi tried to solidify his power by convincing his internal hawks that his Taiwan policy is working. And I feel also the issue, another thing is the Taiwan people's agency. We need to have more voices, and we need to have more channels and avenue to express ourselves. We need not to express through the voices of US, but we need to express through the voice of our own. And I feel that's the most important. And what does that mean? And I think it means that every Taiwanese has to think about how do we stay resilient? How do we stay relevant to the world? And I think if you look at the current geopolitical reality, it's hard to come up with a solution that satisfies Taiwan, US, and China. So what's the best way to do it? I feel right now maintaining the status quo is the best way. And secondly, is probably to keep all the options open on the table. So it's seemingly three sides are still in talks. Because you want to keep these talks on the table and as if three parties are still in the game. Because when the game is over, then it's truly game over. So I think it's very important to, at least for the China side, to recognize Taiwan is a different Taiwan now. And it's coming off of a generation that is more, self-aware of its cultural identity, and also trying to figure out what's next for our own country. And so that's, to me, who have been in politics, who now work in academic research, and who's been an entrepreneur, I feel Taiwan just need to be more creative in coming up with our own narratives and also to own up our own agency. We shouldn't let our fate decide by neither US or China. That's how I feel. Yeah.
Steve or Rose, do you want to say anything more about this? Or I want to give you each a chance to make any final comments before we close, if there's anything else we haven't covered that you'd like to.
And that's the thorniest topic, I think. Every time all the interviews we're asked about sort of the relationship and where Taiwan falls, right? And I think through a lot of PR training, it's always saying that you're not a citizen of Taiwan, and so I shouldn't make this judgment as U.S. But I think for the most part, for us, and for many of the people that we know in Taiwan, it's just about, I think, safety comes first, and so whatever ends up happening, I think that for us, I think a closer ties with China would make absolute sense if there's a way to be able to have that conversation ongoing way that maintains the safety of the people. I think war is the last option for the people in Taiwan.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is Economic Growth Forum, but we can end this forum without talking extensively about politics. But that's just how it is. But I think Taiwan has a lot of resilience as a country, as collection of industries, and this is really something we want to preserve. And we need to increase our own voice. I think we heard that from this panel, from the previous panels. No matter it's inside a campus or just in the public forums, Taiwan needs to be heard. Taiwan needs to bring our own value, no matter from the industry or from our, kind of cultural standpoint, to really, make ourselves heard. So that's probably the best way for us to, showcase what our value really is, what's our relationship to the global community overall, and it's not just the little poem between two countries. And when we can settle that, trust me, Taiwan's economies can go anywhere. Thank you.
Beautifully stated. So let me just make a few closing points before we hear the truly closing points from the director of APARC, Gi-wook Chen. First of all, I do believe, as someone who watches this situation across the strait, that we have an interesting and maybe slightly more flexible near-term situation now. The medium-term situation I do worry about in terms of the pace of PRC military modernization and expansion and the kinds of weapons they're accumulating and the strategic intent that they may have. But in the near term, we need, as we talk about energy problems, electricity problems, water problems, demography problems, bottlenecks of various kinds, that, there are a lot of problems and bottlenecks on the other side of the strait.
Yeah.
And the current PRC leadership and Xi Jinping, they have their hands full now. In terms of the real estate sector, the demography, problems of corruption, and a lot of discontent that many China experts that we talk to are picking up as they visit China. And there are interesting objective indicators. The visit that you mentioned of Ma Ying-jeou is only one. That there's a moment and an opportunity here now for pragmatic decompression of the relationship and small steps, quiet steps, not extravagant steps, The expansion of visitors and tourists, I think, is a very promising one, which would also be good for the economy, to decompress this and create a better atmosphere. And if you create a better atmosphere, less tense atmosphere in the near term, maybe it carries over into the medium term as well. I'll just say in relation to Jason, and really apropos of nothing else that's been said here, but one of my all-time favorite movies, which I recommend to everyone, is the film The Death of Stalin. And The Death of Stalin was followed by a period of actually, you know, de-Stalinization and decompression. And there is a lot of resistance within China that cannot be openly voiced without great personal risk to the people who would voice it, with the direction Xi Jinping has been taking the political and economic system. I don't think, you know, his father has lived to a very ripe age. I don't think we should assume that he won't. But if something should happen, I actually don't think there would be chaos. I think there would be de-Stalinization. Finally, I just want to say that this is not the only good news that we have to share with you, the creation of this program. And thank you, so many of you. What a great turnout for being here. The university is very excited about this program. It's not that common for the president of the university to come to a conference like this and the launch of a program like this, but the university is very excited about this. And next summer, Karis Templeman is here, so Karis and I will take an undergraduate class from the Bing Overseas Studies program to Taiwan for 19 days to get to know Taiwan better. So if you're an undergraduate who's not graduating in June, we invite you to apply. And I'll just finish by saying they will find, if they haven't been there before, but some of them will have been, what many of you have spoken to, what people have referred to repeatedly over the course of this day. One of the great assets that Taiwan has going for it, even without having moved forward accessibility in English language as well as it might, or having dealt with the electricity challenges as well as they might, it's a wonderful society, right? People are nice, and they're nicer than they are here, and that's why Steve Chen is still living there. So, Giwak, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Larry. It has been a truly amazing day. Even last summer, Larry and I were talking about establishing Taiwan program, and we are not so sure, right? So we may or may not have. It has become a wonderful reality, today. And as Larry mentioned, it's very rare for university president to come to launching of a program. You know, when I established Korea program, I think only dean came. Not so this is a really indication of how much interest university shows on Taiwan. So I think this is our logo here. So you can see Taiwan program, Shorenstein APARC. So we have Japan program, China program, Korea program, Southeast Asia program, and Asia Health Policy program. So right now, officially, Taiwan program is part of our center. So I'm really happy to have that. And also today, we've been asking about what's next for Taiwan. But we are asking same question for other parts of Asia. What's next for Japan? For Korea, Indonesia, India, and so on. So I'm very happy to say that last summer we launched also new policy lab, what we call Stanford Next Asia. So what's next for Asia? So and policy lab. So we have several postdocs and our students working very hard. So we are dealing with issues like migration, talent strategies and cultural diversity, racism, U.S.-China relations, and so on. So we are working very hard, to come up with some policy suggestions for Asian countries. So I think having a Taiwan program will add, more dimension to our lab as well. So I think it's a really great day, and my sincere thanks to wonderful speakers and our generous donors, also our partners, and all of you, especially those who came from Taiwan all the way. I mean, that's really moving for us that you came from Taiwan to attend this conference. And also my staff, who worked so hard. So hopefully they can have a good sleep tonight. Okay, so this is only the beginning, and there are a lot more to come. So please stay tuned. So great to see you today, and hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much.